Model railroading is a hobby enjoyed by many people from all around the world. Many different eras of railroading history have been shown through the power of model trains, from the early 1800s to modern day. There is a little slice of every era for everybody. It is easy to get started with this hobby, but a good question to think of is what size locomotive will you want to operate? Here are some of the positives and negatives of owning/operating large or small locomotives. Note, this video will only discuss HO scale steam locomotive models. Let's start off with the smaller side of the board. First off, what is a small locomotive? My definition of a small locomotive is from the Bachmann 280s and smaller models. The reason why I put the Bachmann 280 as a small locomotive is due to 280s being used in freight and passenger service, along with 280s being used on main lines and short line railroads. Examples of small locomotives include but are not limited to 040s, 440s, 060s, 260s, 262s, 460s, 280s, any logging locomotives, i.e. Shays, Heislers, and Climaxes, or any locomotive smaller than that. With that being said, let's get to the pros. First off, smaller locomotives can fit on tighter radius curves, switches, and layouts. If you're limited on space, a layout with a tight radius curve will allow you to have more room on the layout for buildings and scenery. Secondly, most industrial railroads had smaller engines to work their facilities. This wasn't always true, however, and some industrial railroads had larger engines to work their lines. Thirdly, smaller engines, most of the time, have fewer parts to work on, meaning if repairs need to be done, they can be done with less worry of losing parts or getting confused in the design. However, small locomotives do have some negatives. First, due to the model's size and therefore being lighter, they can't pull as much as most larger engines. A Bachmann 280 MacArthur can pull more cars than a Reverasi S100 due to its weight. Second, price. Due to smaller models being so sought after, the price of smaller locomotives has risen significantly. A good example of this is the Bachmann Spectrum Modern 440. In some stories, I've heard the model sold for $150 at some stores, while the average price is around $250 to $300 today. Now let's get into the large locomotives. What is a large locomotive? A large locomotive is any model larger than a Bachmann Spectrum 280. Larger locomotives include, but are not limited to, 282s, 284s, 482s, 484s, any mainline articulateds, etc. Let's view some pros. First, if you are someone who loves long freight trains or passenger trains, these are the locomotives for you. With more weight on the model, it allows the locomotive to have more pulling power. If you are a fan of the Norfolk and Western, you can recreate those long coal drags or the Union Pacific's long freight trains out west. Second, larger locomotives look more impressive next to cars or buildings, showing the later designs of the steam era. Third, larger engines can be cheaper depending on where you purchase them at. The number one place to buy model trains is at train shows, but if you do not have a train show near you, eBay or Facebook Marketplace is your next best option. Alrighty, let's get to the negatives. First off, space. Larger models can take up more room and need a larger turning radius to operate at full performance. A good example of this is my Southern Railway tractor locomotive that can't make 18 radius curves. Second, with a larger model comes more parts in the maintenance department. That means more to worry about. More screws, side rods, wheels, and more wiring. Which is the winner? Between small and large locomotives, they both have their pros and cons, but what it really boils down to is what you prefer. If you prefer long mainline freight trains, larger engines may be your style. If you like industrial switching or short line railroads, smaller engines are probably your choice. Everyone is entitled to their own opinions and preferences. The goal of model railroading is to have fun after all. With that being said, I prefer smaller locomotives.